Great. So over the month of January, we had a dedicated group of about 20 folks from our Saviors come together Wednesday nights to talk about the future of our property here at our Saviors. And it was just awesome to see and feel the energy in the room. You've already been noticing there are a lot of papers on your table. And, you know, we began this process with a devotion, reading the beginning of Genesis and talking about where do we see God's creative activity already in our midst, and how might we stay attuned to God's creative activity in our midst as we continue in this property reimagining work. And, you know, it says in Genesis, be fruitful and multiply. And the paper you have is like showing that our ideas and dreams for our property, they're multiplying. So this has been a creative process, a generative process for sure, and it continues. So we're just taking a moment, not to say we have produced and we have resolved, you know, what we're doing with our property, not at all. We have stirred up new, fresh ideas and insights and possibilities, and we're turning back to the larger congregation to say, hey, we want to hear your input and feedback as we keep going. So with that little intro, I'm going to hand it over to Mike.
Hey. Thank you, Pastor Martha. Well, first I want to say it's been a real pleasure, exciting, invigorating process this last month of January. It's been really a fun group to be part of, and I expect that to continue today and into February and March and for years into the future.
You didn't say decades, right?
Well, maybe this community may go for decades, but you know something about these are not measured in months, but in years to have a vision come to be. I thought I'd just start with outlining the process we're using, and which I tried to illustrate here. In this month of January, the group has been working on setting goals, brainstorming, refining, and this is ongoing work, a set of different visions, pathways, strategies for achieving these goals. We've identified some evaluation criteria to use in evaluating alternatives. And now, after today, in the month of February, on March 2nd, when leaders of Our Saviors and Our Saviors Community Services gather, we'll begin the process of evaluating alternatives. We don't know exactly how long that will take, but we hope by mid-year we could be coalescing around a strategy, a pathway. And then it will probably take a good 6 months to identify our development partners and put together an implementation plan. We're hoping that during 2025, we can be, depending on the strategy chosen and the kind of partner or partners that we might be working with, we can begin to pursue funding and looking ahead to actually making our vision come to life. Although I think the planning itself is part of coming to life, because that's when we're engaging our vision and creativity. So with that, David, if we can get the next one here.
Nelson.
Just put it right over this, okay. And I think this is on one of the sheets you have. If you look to one, there's one that lists both the objectives and the evaluation criteria. But when we spent time together, we had a whole list of potential goals, and these were the 4 that our group of 20 identified as the top 4 that we want, whatever vision, whatever particular pathway or strategy we use, we want to achieve a plan that includes some level of housing and hope and potentially some home ownership that embodies and promotes climate stewardship and innovation. Third, that offers flexible space for our Savior's children and youth. And fourth, that incorporates some way of addressing land theft and incorporates our reparations lens. And one of the areas we've talked perhaps most about in that area is some kind of land back possibility. So those are our four overall objectives. And then I'll invite you to look at the evaluation criteria. Here first, this one. Again, we had a list of about 15 or more different potential evaluation criteria for as we thought about our different strategy alternatives. And we coalesced, and these, as you might imagine, match up with our overall goals. What is the amount of deeply affordable housing that a strategy or pathway will offer?
Can you see at this angle?
What degree of opportunities are there for wealth building among BIPOC communities? What is the degree of energy conservation or carbon reduced or climate justice that a pathway can offer? How well does the pathway meet the OSLC space needs? And how well does the strategy meet the OSCS space needs? Those were our top 5 prior evaluation criteria. And then the next level criteria was what degree of addressing land theft will be embodied in the pathway, and what is the degree of flexibility for potential changing needs in the future, in future years, maybe even future decades. And then just some other considerations that we recognize will have to be addressed at some point in selecting among alternatives. What is the degree of financial risk obligations to OSLC and also to OSCS? And what is the complexity? Complexity can be different, which will add to both the time to complete and maybe the actual ability to complete. Okay, that's the criteria. And now I'm just going to say a little bit about the 6 strategy alternatives that we're going to be working with today. So if you would go, there's one sheet, 2-sided sheet. And I'm going to ask you, which gives a description, and I have some highlights of those, but I'm going to ask you to turn to the back of it and first look at the notes. Because all the options, you can put that first one up, David, thank you. All the strategic options, pathways will incorporate sustainability features, green energy ideas as much as possible, although some can do it more than others. We'll try to have whatever housing is built to make as much of it as accessible as possible. Most of the options allow for at least some degree of land back to tribes or indigenous organizations if we choose to do that. Different types of ownerships or ownership transfers could be included in most of the options. We believe that our assumption is, given our goals and criteria, that all will address at least the minimum OSLC space needs. And we obviously still have a lot to learn about our neighbors' interests and view of our project. And we want to be open to new ideas emerging as we're working along the way, how the spirit can be moving among us. So with that said, I'm going to start stay on that back page. I'm going to start first with the maintain strategy. We wanted to have one strategy in the mix that envisioned $1 million option, where some of the others are probably tens of millions of dollars in terms of what we're talking about. But if we were wanting to keep things largely as they are, address and but still meet at least at a minimum level our overall objectives, we would replace and repair properties, including this building as needed. We convert one of the properties to ELC classrooms and office space so they can move out of the basement, freeing that space for the needs of children and youth and other needs that we have. But it would retain this current sort of profile to the neighborhood. I don't know, the word that comes to my mind is sort of that single family housing look and feel. Whether that's good or bad, it would retain that in our neighborhood. Okay, another option, another pathway is to sell or give away some or all of the properties, whether that includes this building or not. In this particular version of selling, giving it assumes we retain ownership of this building, but that we largely give to OSCS or other organizations some or all of the other properties. And that would sort of leave us out of, we could be involved in some of the development issues in terms of what kind of organizations and what kind of conditions, of any, we'd offer, but we'd have less involvement and control over what happens to the space around here in future years. And that there's pros and cons to, at least in my mind, to that. So we could, for example, sell it below market value or give some or all properties to a range of organizations. Probably in this option, we want to add a second story here so we can meet a variety of needs. And we maybe finance that with some of the sales. And one example is giving the properties along Elliott Avenue to one or more BIPOC organizations for their offices, gathering space, green space, and then do some kind of development along Chicago Avenue. Okay, now next, on the next other side of the page are four develop strategies. These are ones that envision at some level, could be minimal to fairly involved. The congregation would be involved with one or more developers in setting the kind of development that would happen along Elliott and Chicago Avenue. So I'm going to quickly give four here. One strategy at the top of the page is maximize housing. Maybe the most radical version of this would be to leave the church as it is. We have Our Savior's, we have the shelter building, which is going to be getting a second story, we believe, but take everything else and create one fairly large building that would have a variety of deeply affordable housing options incorporated in it. We'd cut off Elliott, the alley here, and have that exit onto Elliott Avenue around where 2308 Elliott is. And we could fairly radically increase the amount of affordable housing that Our Savior's offers. Another option is the next one, which is more focused on wealth building. This would envision, one way of envisioning or accomplishing this could be to take the Elliott Avenue properties and either replacing them or rehabbing them and making them available for home ownership through a land trust or some other type of structure. And then along Chicago Avenue, developing a multi-purpose building for classrooms, housing, and potentially for BIPOC businesses and meeting space. A third option focuses on, a development option focuses on climate justice, emphasizing green energy and resilience, zero carbon housing, be it rental or ownership, alternative energy business and orgs in one or more buildings, a block-wide energy project, and sustainability features throughout whatever developments that we do. And then a fourth is a community hub focus, where we would really seek increased neighborhood involvement and what are the needs of for housing, for community nonprofits. We know we need classrooms. So we have one option here of Elliott Avenue has nonprofits and garden space. And then a building along Chicago, again, multi-purpose, mix of purposes, adding a second floor to this building and creating a community resilience energy hub. Okay, well, that's what I have to say. And now, yes, and what we're gonna be doing now is we will soon be breaking into groups to look at these in more detail. But an overall question would be quite appropriate.
So, on this last one, you said you looked for the community to see what their input was for what the needs are. Would you not be doing that for the other three?
Exactly, that we would want to do that for all of these. This would be maybe a next level of community engagement. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's.
Yeah. So, I know this is a lot of information to take in. And I will say too, instead of like getting fixed on these scenarios and like, oh, which one do we want to choose? It's kind of more of a thought exercise. So just want you to know that. So you're holding them kind of lightly, but we wanted to give you something concrete to play with as we have table conversations. But before we get into the table conversations, we also, during the month of January, developed these subgroups that went kind of more deeply into different themes such as housing, land back, green energy. And those subgroups found different case studies that were exciting to us. And so we just want to really briefly just share 3 examples of kind of where we felt some energy or some juice as we were learning about some case studies and engaging with neighbors. So I'll start with one of those. So one exciting thing that's been emerging through neighborhood conversations is there are a couple of BIPOC-led organizations that are seeking some land, and specifically the way they've articulated it is they would like a house. So one of those organizations is called the Minnesota Immigrant Movement, and Jovita Morales has been a leader in the neighborhood for 17 years. She's worked at Wait House in the food pantry, and she has started this statewide organization of immigrants who really led the charge in the driver's licenses for all movement in Minnesota. So she's like a major leader in that whole movement. And now what they're doing, now that there are driver's licenses for all, they're like convening the community to help people access training to be able to drive. And they're figuring out what next issues they want to work on. So she's desiring a house for that nonprofit where the community can gather, where they can do learning, leadership training, and also like tend to their own mental health and physical health. She is a boxer and enjoys boxing and like wants space for that and other kinds of movement activities. So that's one exciting thing we've heard. And also, I know some of you got to be here when Crow Bellicourt came from Indigenous Protector Movement. I will say, I know that his presence was perhaps, I don't know, a little bit underwhelming for some because he's not really the main spokesperson, I would say, of Indigenous Protector Movement. Rachel Thunder, who is amazing, is a mom in the community, and she's really, as I've heard all the leaders of Indigenous Protector Movement describe her, she's really like the brains of the whole organization. And I hope we can continue to engage with them because they're also interested in a house. So with that, Amy, do you want to share a little bit about green energy?
Here I come. Thank you. All right. Well, talk about excitement. I don't know about the rest of you, but part of how I try to tell where the Holy Spirit is leading is by watching for what I call green lights. And it's so appropriate that in this green energy concept, there have been a whole bunch of green lights for me popping up as I've been exploring how our saviors can, let's see, pursue a block-wide new and bold private initiative and take advantage of the tremendous amount of money that's currently available at the federal, state, and local levels, okay? So
In response to the tremendous amount of urgency we all feel about doing more on climate.
just look outside. Anyway, it does feel, I have to say, it feels good to be working on this at this time. So, and you all know that we all care about averting climate catastrophe, promoting environmental justice, living wages, and neighborhood housing quality, and that our Saviors has for a long time been partnering with Isaiah and the People's Climate Inequity Plan since it got started in Minneapolis. And now they've joined forces along with an Immigrants Fair Share group called UNIDOS to promote this very major, large scale change in how our houses are retrofitting, and including a pathway for training for BIPOC folks to become union members. So Ola Nelson, Solvay's daughter, is part of guiding this coalition. Grant Stevenson has been part of it from the beginning. And residents in this ward who are working on this in Ward 9 have all had connections with our Saviors already. So it's just like, whoa, and the council members enthusiastic. And Mount Olive down the street and the American Swedish Institute are ready to consult with us on their geothermal projects. And it's green, 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 green. So.
How do you really feel?
And the best part is, because let's face it, there are gonna be some yellow lights. And there could be a red light too. Boom, this doesn't work. But even if we don't ultimately succeed in being one of the first in the city nation to institute this plan of block-wide clean energy renovations installed by trained BIPOC union workers, we can actually be helpful to these initiatives we care about that are so important just by talking it up and trying it. Such a deal. I mean,
Can you use the People's Climate Equity Plan and UNIDO?
so it's also Isaiah. Yep.
Yeah, UNIDOS and Isaiah are the organizations who are promoting people's climate and equity. Yeah,
Which, as you know, is in Minneapolis.
yeah, Minneapolis.
How do you follow that?
You've been doing it for years.
More or less, yeah. Well,
Yeah, I'm just wondering about, I know that many of us are hoping that transit will become, public transit will become a bigger part of our lives here in Minneapolis. And, I know that that is a thing that people are really working toward with the climate and equity plan. But I also know that at the moment, a lot of us get around with cars and a lot of our neighbors probably also get around with cars, even if many of them also use transit. And I'm just wondering how we're thinking about parking, and I specifically know from having lived in the LVC house, that parking on Elliott can be pretty risky. My car has been minorly hit and run multiple times on Elliott. And also that parking on Elliott requires a permit from the city that says that you live on Elliott. So I'm just wondering how the issue of parking may be factoring into any of these decisions.
so Linnea, not surprisingly, you are ahead of us. And there will be an opportunity at about 5 of 10 for a series of issues that we need to begin working on, including parking.
Okay.
So there'll be a work group on a range of issues that, one of which includes parking. You want to say more about that? Mark?
No, that's great.
All right.
I wonder if we want to transition to heat.
If we want to do it, we want to get into these, yeah. Should I just skip this other?
Maybe so, just.
All right, I had another story that just shows how a church in Louisville went through an amazing transformation, one that's not like ours, but they just dedicated their property to be totally aligned with their mission and vision. And they looked carefully at the neighborhood, what they needed, what the neighborhood needed. And from that, just developed this exciting village at West Jefferson, which I can share at another time. But we've had some good enthusiasm and we have more to do. Go ahead, over here.
Quick question. A lot of these say seek partners. Are these partners that you all know of, or are these like, I have no idea if these people exist?
Well, I would say it's somewhere in between. We know there are a lot of experienced partners in all these areas operating in the Twin Cities, but we have not identified specific partners. That is one of these steps here that will be occurring at once. We need to select the pathway we're going. Are we focused on housing? Are we focused on wealth building? Are we focused on a community hub? And as we are we focused on a giveaway? That will help determine what set of partners we want to interview in more detail. So that is a coming step. You're even a step ahead of Linnea. All right, let's go to the next.
David.
David, yeah, everything's working.
Okay, now we're going to dig and dialogue at your tables about one of these 6 development strategies. We've got 6 tables, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're asking people to, there should be a set of worksheets in the middle of the table too, that ask you to dig into one of the scenarios using these 3 filters. One, how does it align with our congregational strategic goals? 2, where do you feel energy as you see this? What do you like in it that captivates you? And 3,
Risks and rewards.
oh yeah, the risks and rewards, using the little risk and reward boxes of this. And what we ask is, there are multiple copies for people to write on as they wish individually, but we'd like to get from each table 1 copy of the worksheet with kind of collected comments that can feed back into our planning of the process. And we're going to have an experienced, seasoned member of the January study group process sitting at each table to facilitate and help go deeper. I'm going to say, Cal will be on housing, and then we'll make this table 1 right here. I'll go to wealth building at table 2 over there. Craig's table in the back will be the green energy, and Amy will sit with you. This table here will be the community hub with Allison. And sell or give the property will be here, Rico's table with Pastor Martha. And over here will be the maintain option, and Mike will be at that table.
Right.
And we've got about 15 minutes to do that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're also welcome to fill out individual worksheets and turn those in. We'll review those as well. And if you have a passion for a topic, a scenario that you're not at the table of, you are allowed to move to other tables.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Yes. 2. Or just 1.
Yes. So maybe under like.
And the one thing I would say about
Right.
exciting.
And that's the same
Status.
not. A lot of my Native American brothers.
I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
They all take why would you want? Both land and the same thing. Yes, we want a big. Part of it, but it's still. It's still a lot of investment. One of the good things that I've been having. Clean things up.
Stepping into it now for whatever it's not the right time. Becoming, choosing to make it happen, hopefully, I mean, that we don't do it, that we need to do it. But there might be a handful to say, and this is 5 years, this is what makes most of it. Right, reason.
Best, air, and.
I also see it as part of a broader
Then
strategy.
we can say, okay, maybe we sell at market rate or less than market rate, or maybe.
Yeah.
That feels like a
I just
risk.
wonder, I mean, I guess we're thinking about the and what, like in general, I think before we repair. Or like we have. Yeah. If they're not gonna be houses, they're gonna get torn down, and it's not.
Feels like he just.
Oh,
okay, sorry.
Yeah, right. We make it sure it's living in
Okay, so sorry, I'm distracted. I'm actually looking at 14 and up in this sheet, and I thought actually all of these could really be accomplished by me. So both like, I know, you know, Rico is very well, that house needs a lot of remodeling, improvement. So making that a better place. Maintaining control of the property allows for like coordinated geo as well as coordinated financing for solar models. So that could be, that's, you know, again, in preparation, giving property better condition, is, again,
10-unit.
I would say, like, I think the key risk here is sort of kicking the thing out. Either being like, well, this is our next 10-year, right, then you don't make the like 20-year investment. Or, you don't actually get around to the investment preparation. How we just control. So, I mean, sorry, that's what I'm
Building, properties and planning.
So.
Right. I work in a. Because that's. Okay, so on any of these, we gotta hire. Planning. Somebody that. Maybe like now. Their organization. I like. There's going to be risk. Because the parking. OSCS. So, you know, that's very much my thing is like.
You know, like there's all these like things around, like.
And we don't want to see this to develop. Because they're just slower starters. 90%. Well.
What I saw this one.
This. All of
Like
that.
that.
This is the most.
Okay, well, space, but yeah, how they do it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I'm talking. So my understanding, yellow, this is already OSCS. That means actually, like classrooms, or like the largest project, I don't know how.
Design and develop.
Frankly, I think it's best maintained over there. So part of it is maybe some changes to the space needed, but also probably see them change to the programming.
Reward the risk.
And, you know, like classroom space like that, that could be shared for like you and, I think right now, I don't remember the exact layout of the house. I was just thinking, actually, it's all just on the first floor, and actually, I think the top floor and probably do well on.
I'm assuming there's.
Oh, not yet.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, it's kind of. I'm like talking.
I think it would be probably that would be, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not exactly right. I think that I know. Yeah. No, I agree.
I was at the ball for all that, I was like.
Just from a financial perspective, maximize the units and everything to be like.
So like we had
You should have opted in with the.
What can I do?
Oh, you're one of the people on the thing, you can help facilitate.
I just want one.
You didn't have to get green in order to make it green.
I think it's probably the way that the sleep is laid out. And how, there's been a lot of big body. Which would like to check the monitor and every.
And always, I know always needs been. It's just not ideal. I guess I struggle with Molly, even, you know, like the intermittent hours. It's like our church, like, it's like the rent, Sundays, maybe one other place. They have like, like that for the right. They don't, it seems to, I mean, it's been, part of some of us, yes. And OSLC. This building, made this building.
Yes, yeah.
Every
So
day.
last week was just past like pointed out, but I feel like people have been feeling kind of polarized ways about using control. People have a different opinion of things they might
That
be.
aren't like city.
And I think it's really
Reading first.
and
Class. I don't know.
neighborhood development.
That's a challenge.
What is on the plan. But there's also good management for and, you know, like, we really people.
To be clear, I'm not sure. Again, I personally.
And I think it's very different ways. And I know we're designing for you. Yeah, behind the idea that that's amazing about, and I think that those different possibilities.
That's not it.
Happen. Part of it is like, you don't feel like you need to- every single day. There's something where we're still in stairs because it's like, you know, so you get a little bit of it, they're like, something like that. Like these years, like happening. And I mean, I think that getting out my property. It's a big reward. It's hard. It's hard, but I think great part I won't live is probably. We know that there's. That's not, so I think.
That's how. From secondary.
Yeah. What's the state?
We put it off the padlock.
Someone like you can build a whole property and actually wagon mindset.
I mean, how much? I think that's.
1 minute warning to wrap up this conversation. I know they won't be finished, but
Actually, reminds me. So the green now. All right. Now, that is it. Yeah. Well, and there are other people, but they're all yellow house and get a free thing. A lot of land.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, that's not very good, but only like, that is like.
My point is.
You know, see how it's kind of probably. Line up. Probably maybe close. Like. Players, like that house. Like this amazing.
all right, I feel rather ruthless butting in on your incredible bubbling flow right now, but mindful of the clock, I wonder if we can turn our attention together here.
Yeah, more people are applying.
It's hard to stop.
I know.
That's good. I don't think.
Except for maybe complicated about what it's made. The other options maybe more like big structure, you know, oriented. And again.
All right, is there anybody to share a key highlight from your tables discussion with the full table, full room? Here comes Harmon, take care.
Okay, at table one, we were looking at the housing scenario. And a couple of things came up. Number one, that we don't think it addresses our church's strategic goals very well. It maybe hits the first one and the fifth one, but the middle three are kind of question marks. One of the most interesting pieces of the conversation was this scenario gives us the most housing and the most rental housing across the spectrum. And you could argue that it maintains the character of this neighborhood as being a starting place for people that are new to the country and the state. Because there's a lot of rental housing here, people get their feet on the ground, and then they move on. But it's a starter neighborhood, if you will, or has been for the past 50 years or so.
Yeah. Thank you, table one. Another table wish to share out something?
So we had the sell and or give option, Pastor, okay. Here are the notes, thank you. So we talked about how this would lead to deeper engagement with our neighbors. The adding a second story to the church building could help us intentionally nurture communal and spiritual life and deepen relationships in the congregation. But in terms of dismantling white supremacy, we were kind of worried about how bad of a shape some of these properties on Elliott especially are in. And giving, properties in bad shape to BIPOC communities and calling it reparations doesn't seem like a very good, honest idea.
It's the land back repair strategy, not the reparations.
Yeah, that's not good. So one of our concerns about the risks is if we give properties to partners that are kind of just starting up, which many BIPOC-led organizations are, those organizations could fold. And then the property could turn over to another owner who might not be very mission aligned. And one of the rewards, kind of the opposite of this past table, is that we would get out of property management. And Rico and I are both at the table. We both have lived in properties managed by our saviors, and we can both tell you that the church is not a good landlord. And we think it would be great for the church to not be a landlord. And also if the organizations that we potentially would give the properties to worked out, it would be great to have those relationships so close by and so kind of entwined. We think that could be a really positive thing. So yeah, those were some of the things we were weighing.
Sure. Or somebody else can.
I'm gonna just start out here because we did these rewards and risks and Nate will fill it in. But rewards for this maintain strategy was it gives us a way of buying time for making any of these, doesn't close off these other options, but it buys time. It allows us to create better properties for future give back or land back. And it would be good stewardship to keep using shared space, and maybe we can come up with a variety of ways to meet the OSCS OLC needs, and then say a little bit about the rewards here for the geothermal and.
Oh, yeah, so one of the rewards of the maintain strategy would be, maintaining control over properties, which will be important for any sort of coordinated major investment in an energy system. Maybe can I speak to the risks a little bit?
Yeah.
So at the same time, I think while it's a reward to buy some time, I think there's a risk that the maintain strategy is another opportunity to kick the can down the road and continue to be a bad or a could be better landlord for both OSCS and LVC residents. We
would lose housing if we convert a property.
Yeah, I think we could lose some space through the conversion. Sorry, I'm having a hard time
We
reading.
need that right here.
Okay, good.
We have.
All right, speaking as a ruthless time control person, I'm not gonna let the other tables talk yet until we make an announcement, which is, you might have noticed these conversations feel a little unfinished and we still have some unresolved questions. Well, we have a plan for that, which is over here on the brown door, there are 6 sign-up sheets for 6 February research teams.
Woo woo!
And you could be on 1, you could even be on 6 if you were so inclined. And there's a little description of what each one would focus on and room to put your name and contact information in. Mike and Martha and I will see what's generated here by the end of church today and be in touch with people during this coming week sometime about immediate next steps. It's a short-term gig. Our next benchmark date is 3 weeks from today, the February 25th, Sunday, so that whatever the February research teams are able to generate on behalf of this, it can be fed into the March 2nd joint retreat of OSCS Council Board, OSLC Council, and Joint Property Committee members. So That's what that's for. And the 6 topics are, I'll just walk over and tell you what they are.
Oh, there you go. Never mind, we're good. Never mind.
Oh, I think he just wants
Yeah,
to hear what the name.
Yeah, can we hear what they are?
Yeah.
What?
No, you want
No, can we hear what they are?
Okay, so team 1 is green energy and climate justice, with a set of questions. Team 2 is more space for OSLC, which includes a minimum number of square feet for congregational usage and minimum number of parking spaces that we think must be included in the redeveloped campus. Team 3 would focus on issues of property ownership and control by the congregation. Topic 4 would be on affordable housing, some of the home ownership and rental considerations. Group 5 would focus on land back and reparative strategies. And group 6 would focus on BIPOC wealth building through business incubation strategies. So there's more detail on each of those, but feel free and please do sign up if you have any interest in being part of
And
it.
how can online people sign up?
They can put it in the chat and someone here will transcribe their name onto here.
Or they could email.
Or they can
me,
email
or David.
Martha, Mike, or me. Yeah, and anybody else who doesn't get a, chance to write your name on here, like in the next 2 hours, just email Martha, Mike, and me in the next 2 days, and we'll make sure you're full to do. All right? Ms. General One, we haven't been overrun by kids yet. But thank you for being here. My apologies to the other 3 tables that didn't get to share out, but the process continues. Thank you.
No, it's okay. That was not to be at all about trying to be short-winded or working about the law.
David? Thank you, Mike.
You're okay?